The Father's love. I woke up the other morning with the revelation of the rest for our souls. And the rest that is found in Christ, there are different dimensions to that. The seven spirits of God reveals it to us. So there's 7 levels of that rest. As Psalm 12:6 says, the words of the Lord are pure words, as silver tried or refined in the furnace of the earth, purified 7 times. And the 7 spirits of God reveals those depths and dimensions to us. There are 7 depths of revelation of his rest. And he's revealed different ones to me at different times, but Friday morning, he revealed this rest from our enemies. And it's in knowing the Father's love that he loves his enemies. That Christ, the Lamb, sits on the mercy seat because he loves his enemies. You've heard it said, love your neighbors and hate your enemies, but I say unto you, love your enemies. Do good to those that hate you. Bless those that persecute you.
Yes.
Pray for those that despitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be the children of my Father in heaven, for this is his love. For he makes the sun rise upon the evil and upon the good, and he sendeth forth rain upon the just and the unjust. Be ye therefore merciful, as your Father in heaven is merciful. For if you love those that love you, what reward have you? Do not even sinners the same? That word reward Or in another place, the King James says, if you love those that love you, what thank have you? And it's the Greek word charis. What grace have you? See, what is grace? It's the power of his love. It's the power of his love to love your enemies. So you don't need grace to love those that love you. And that's mostly what we see in the church, isn't it? This is why we have all these denominations. Because we haven't learned how to love our enemies. And therein is the rest. From enemies. They no longer become your enemies. In Psalm 95, this is what David entered into, to know this love of the Father, to love his enemies. And he speaks of this in Psalm 139, where he says, such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot attain it. To know the love of Christ which passes knowledge. The breadth, the length, the depth, the height. To know the love of Christ which passes knowledge, that you might be filled with all the fullness of God. David says, such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot attain unto it. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your face? If I ascend into heaven, you are there, the height of your love. If I make my bed in hell, you are there, the depth of your love. If I take up the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost part of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, your right hand shall hold me, the length of his love. If I say, surely darkness shall cover me, even night shall be light about me, the breadth of his love. We will never know this love until we truly love our enemies. The Lamb who sits at the mercy seat, will you overcome to sit with him on the mercy seat? See, Psalm 50, a psalm of David, says, the mighty God, the Lord, has spoken and called the earth from the rising of the sun until the going down the same. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, the perfection of his love, God has shined. Our God shall come and shall not keep silent. A fire shall devour before him, and it shall be very tempestuous round about him. He shall call to the heaven above and to the earth, that he may judge his people. Gather my saints, it says, but it's the Hebrew word, the seed. Gather my merciful ones together unto me. Those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. To lay down their lives, to love their enemies. And so in Psalm 95, David speaks of this in regards to the rest, where he says, we are the people of his pasture, the sheep of his hand. So he was a lamb. He was a sheep, wasn't he? Yeah. And he gave his life for his enemies. There were lambs, sheep are sacrificial animals, and we're to walk in that path. The people of his pasture, the sheep of his hand. Today, if you will hear his voice, love your enemies. Today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts. Oh, they're not worthy of forgiveness. They hurt me so much. They're despicable. Today, if you will hear his voice. David heard this voice. He speaks about it in Psalm 40. Sacrifice and offering you did not desire. My ear have you opened. Love your enemies. Burnt offering and sin offering you have not required. Then said I, lo, I come. In the volume of the book, it is written of me, I delight to do your will, O my God, the Father's love. To perform the Father's love. Yea, your law is in my heart. Love your enemies. The day if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts, as in the provocation, the day of temptation in the wilderness, where your fathers tempted me, proved me, saw my works. 40 years long was I grieved with that generation, and said they do always err in their ways. So I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter into my rest. Because this rest is found in the Father's love and loving his enemies. Colossians 1:21 says, we were enemies in our minds by wicked works. We were his enemies. The Father's heart is to restore all things. Every enemy. Will you hear his voice today? He who overcomes will I grant to sit with me on my throne. Jesus, when he was baptized by John, it said the Spirit of the Lord came and rested upon him. The Spirit rests upon those who've come into the full revelation of the Father's love. It rests upon them. He finds his rest there. And he says, this is my beloved Son, or the Son of my love. The Son of my love who's come into the revelation of my love, with whom I am well pleased. Or your perspective changes. You no longer see them as your enemy. As Jesus looked into Peter's eyes as he betrayed him, did he look into his eyes as an enemy? But righteousness shall look down from heaven, heaven's perspective. See, the seven spirits of the Lord resting upon us as we come into the revelation of his love. Isaiah 11. And there came forth a rod, a sprout out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. That's us, if we abide in his mercy. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. The Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and fear of the Lord. And his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. And he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears. The carnal mind, what you're seeing after the flesh. But all you see is the God image, the Christ in them. He shall judge not after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears, but in righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth and the oppressor with the rod of his mouth, the Spirit of grace. And with the breath, the ruach of his lips, the truth, shall he slay the lawless one. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. And the wolf shall dwell with the lamb. The calf, the young lion, and the fatling shall lie down together, and a little child shall lead them. The ox and the bear shall feed, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox.
That's for Daddy.
The weaned child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the suckling child shall play on the hole of the cockatrice den. There shall none hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain. For the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, of his love, shall cover the earth as the waters cover the sea. The restoration of all things. There's no enemies there. Can you hear his voice calling you to that? Isaiah 16:5 says, in mercy the throne is established. The throne of Christ is established in mercy. For I desired mercy and not sacrifice. O Judah, what shall I do unto you? O Ephraim, what shall I do unto you? O Judah, what shall I do unto you? Who were Ephraim and Judah? They were the northern and southern tribes. What happened? They didn't have mercy towards another, and thus the split. There's one of our first denominational splits. O Ephraim, what shall I do unto you? O Judah, what shall I do unto you? For your mercy is as the morning cloud, and as the early dew it goeth away. It's fleeting, your forgiveness towards one another. Therefore have I hewn thee by the prophets. The axe is laid at that tree that doesn't bear forth the fruit of love, of mercy. As John the Baptist said to the religious leaders, behold, the axe is laid at the root. What root? The root of bitterness. Cut it off. Cut off the root of bitterness. Pursue peace with all men and holiness, without which no man shall see the Lord. Looking diligently, lest any man fail of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up trouble you, and thereby many are defiled. Therefore have I hewn thee by the prophets, I have slain thee by the words of my mouth, and thy judgment shall be as the light that goeth forth. For I desired mercy and not sacrifice. Not your religious, I want you to be merciful. I want you to forgive one another so that all things can be brought back together in me. This is the love that passes knowledge. To love your enemy. To love the most despicable, God-hating people on this planet. And as you show them mercy, it releases grace. When you forgive their sin, it releases grace to them. It releases the river. And I will close with this. In Psalm 46, David speaks of this river that flows from the throne, from the mercy seat. There is a river whose streams thereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her, Spirit of grace, and that right early. The heathen raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice. The earth melted. The Lord of hosts, Jesus, is with us. Christ in you. The God of Jacob, our refuge. Selah. Come, behold the works of the Lord, what desolations he has made in the earth. He maketh the wars to cease unto the ends of the earth. As you release this river, through your mercy, through your forgiveness of your enemies, he maketh the wars to cease unto the ends of the earth. He breaketh the bow and cutteth the spear in sunder. He burneth the chariot in the fire. Be still and know that I am God. As you live and release this river, out of your belly shall flow rivers. This river of grace. When we walk by the Spirit, to walk in his mercy and in his truth. This river is released from our belly. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in all the earth. The Lord of hosts, Jesus, is with us. The God of Jacob, our refuge, Selah. Be diligent to enter into the rest. hear his voice.